Welcome back to r/neighbors from hell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors. And if you are new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community. And without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. The first one is titled "Company Trespassed on my property and blocked my driveway repeatedly to cut down trees." So, one thing that I never thought would happen is having to fight and complain over a tree removal company. This is due to the simple fact that I actually don't have any trees on my property. I had two when I first moved here, but one died and the other was completely uprooted during a bad storm. I did not end up planting new trees, so instead I used the space to plant rose bushes. It seems off topic, but I promise it will be relevant later in the story. Neighbor had a few dead trees that he had been neglecting for a while and now needed a tree removal company to come and take down their trees. Obviously, that should not involve me in the slightest, but I was dead wrong and soon found out that it did. I came home from work to see that my driveway was not only being blocked by a truck, but there were large pieces of wood in my driveway. If anyone has not seen a tree being cut down before, thinking almost like a bunch of stumps just sitting on my property. I had a long day and found the guy in charge to ask him to let me into my own driveway. He said that because of the tree pieces, it was going to take a little while anyway. We compromised where he moved his truck so I would at least be the one in front of my driveway and he would let me know when they were done. I was still angry, but decided that after a long day I did not want to make a fuss, and by the time I had dinner and relaxed, the whole thing would be over. The man never ended up coming to my door, and when I went outside I saw that they had left for the day and my driveway was still being occupied. I was furious and it was obvious they were coming back tomorrow, so I was not going to tell them off. Unfortunately, I had to leave for work before they arrived, but I told my boss the situation and asked if I could leave early because it was my late night and I did not want to miss them. He allowed me, luckily, and I went home to see them once again with their truck blocking my driveway like nothing changed. They looked nervous when they saw me and I found a different guy in charge, but I did not want to play nice anymore. Me? Excuse me, but you are blocking my driveway for the second day in a row. Man? Well, we needed the driveway for the debris to fall. Me, you are parking and walking all over my property and I did not give permission for any of this. Man, we need to get the work done. I promise that we will be careful. We are almost done for the day and then tomorrow we only need to be here for a little while. I wanted to argue more, but between the sounds of chainsaws and him not seeming to care, I just gave up yet again. I was glad that after a few hours my driveway was free and I was finally able to park in it. They still had chunks of the tree sitting in the street in front of my house, but I figured they would get rid of it all the next day. Well, I was woken up to chainsaws blaring and went outside to see for the third time my driveway being blocked. This time, both of the men I spoke to about it were there and I yelled at them that they had to move because I needed to get to work. I told them that they did not have permission to be on my property and if I got home to find them there, I was going to call the police. I know it sounded extreme, but this was the third day of my property getting treated like empty space and my driveway being blocked. I ended up being an hour late by the time I got them to move their truck, after much complaining in their part. I got home to find them gone and my yard as an absolute mess. You remember when I said the fact I had rose bushes would become important later on in the story? Well, this is later and my rose bushes were totally destroyed by the pieces of tree that were clearly dropped right on top of it. Out of all my bushes, only one was untouched and only two others were salvageable, the rest were totally dead. I would have to start from scratch again after years of taking care of them. In addition, my driveway was covered with sawdust and I could tell they did not even bother to clean up the mess on my side of the property. My neighbor's side obviously looked spotless while mine looked like a disaster. Side note, I know why some of you wonder why I didn't go and talk to my neighbor about this. They actually were not home. They left for a week and paid in advance for these guys to do the job, so I was left with nothing. They also still left the locks in front of my house, and when I called the company to complain, all they said was that I was not the one that hired them, so I cannot complain about the job and have them come to remedy it. Basically, I was stuck and did not know what I was going to do. Normal pickup was not going to take the locks, and they destroyed my bushes without a care. Not to mention the fact that they trespassed on my yard 3 times and blocked me in or out after asking them not to. I know the big question will be if my yard was necessary for the removal of the trees. The answer to that is no. There was no reason they even needed to be anywhere else but neighbor's property to remove them. So my next step was that I called my homeowner's insurance to see if the damage to my bushes would be covered. While I found out that they weren't and I was basically stuck eating the cost of that, the nice lady I spoke to advised me to make a police report. In it, I detailed all my interactions with them and that I was sure the rose bushes were destroyed by falling logs. I don't know who the police spoke to about this exactly, but the next day a truck came to remove the logs and clean up the debris from my driveway. The rose bushes, I think I'm just going to have to accept that I'm not getting anything back for those. I know some people might think I should try and sue the company or even my neighbor for the cost of the bushes. Honestly, it just was not worth it to me, and I felt like I would have lost more money going into a whole lawsuit about it. As long as my property was not being trespassed on anymore or stuff being left for me to deal with, I'm happy. I just hope I never see that company anywhere near my house again, because it won't take 3 days this time to get the police involved about trespassing. And I gotta say, Ripe Stars, in this story I definitely am missing a few legal consequences for the a-hole neighbor. However, I do understand that some people simply are not that confrontational. Maybe OP was a little bit older and they just did not want to deal with all the trouble and were kind of happy in the end that it all was over. Either way, if you enjoy the stories about crazy neighbors, then I would really appreciate it if you could post some star emojis in the comments if you want to support the channel. Thank you so much in advance. The next one is titled Landlord Revenge. When I was in university, I had heard stories about horrible landlords of student housing, but had not experienced it myself. Until the 3rd year, when it felt like we got 3 years worth of crappy landlords all in one go. It began when I heard noises in the wall behind my bed at night. I brushed it off for a while until I realized that it was an animal in the wall. I told the landlords the next day and they immediately played dumb, acting as if I was stupid in front of my housemates for suggesting that something could fit inside of a wall. That was the first alarm bell. Why immediately try to embarrass me into dropping it? After explaining that I know what a cavity wall is, she asked if we had seen anything in the kitchen. Oddly specific, we didn't think about it until later. From then on, her husband dealt with us. We were not aware that he was our landlord too. A little time passes, still nothing done about the noise in my wall. Not that it was a surprise. I had worked out by then that it was probably something like a mouse, that it could run through the terrace of houses. As long as it did not chew its way through my wall or die in there, I put the whole thing on the back burner. That is until we were all sat in the sitting room and heard a thud in the kitchen. And then squeaking. There was a giant rat in our kitchen. The rat disappeared into a hole in the completely crumbling kitchen wall, and the landlord claimed that we made it up and that they had never had a rodent problem. I contacted the previous tenants through Facebooking names I found on letters for them that had been posted to us by mistake. The property had a rat problem for the last 3 years before we moved in at least. I set up a rat trap and caught one, took photos and sent him to the landlord to tell him to sort the problem out. He told us that because there was a line in our contract about the landlord not paying for pest control, the contract specified wasp nests, etc., we did not even think about rats when we signed it, and that we would have to pay the hundreds of pounds to fix it. He had knowingly written that into our contract so he would not have to pay out, instead of fixing the kitchen wall and the exterior wall where the rats were getting in. To cut the rest of the setting, the scene part of the story short, we called the council who sent a pest control team. While on their visit, one of the men took my housemate to one side and told her that our landlord is evil and he is known for getting nasty. They told him that it was not our fault that there were rats, it was his, and he screamed in my face until he was bright red about how I was a terrible person and was trying to take him down for no reason. One of my housemates had to leave because she was scared. I wasn't. We were in a room full of men who were backing us up, making himself look worse for screaming in my face like that. I am female and I was 22 at the time, about half his size. He tried to sue us for slander. It is not slander if it's true, so swing and a miss. And now for the revenge. It was written in our contract that we had to be notified 24 hours in advance if anyone needed access to the house, which included house viewings. I began my mission: stop any other students from getting stuck in this hellhole. The house was being shown by agents, so it made it fairly easy. I left the rat traps in prominent places, casually explaining why we needed them if asked, and if I felt like I was being too subtle, making a fake show of, "Oh gosh, please ignore the rat traps. The landlord said he would fix the kitchen wall where they get in, but has not gotten around to it, so we have to catch them." I was honest about the mold problem in the bathroom. When I found out they were planning on increasing the rent by £100 a month, I made a point of saying something like, "Well, it's just about worth the rent I was paying." I made sure to say his name so they wouldn't get away with using his wife's name as a front, while his reputation for aggression stayed hidden. The agents never said anything to me directly, and because we had to be notified, I could always make sure I was home when there was a viewing. My housemates fully supported my revenge, but I was the woman of action in the house. When I'm sure I'm in the right, I will do what's necessary to make things right. That was until they tried to turn up unannounced one day, not even knocking, just unlocked our front door and walked in. Luckily, I was in the house and kicked them out for not informing us and told them that they were in breach of our contract. If the crappy landlord could use it to beat us with, two can play that game. No new tenants had signed for the house by the time we were free of that hellhole. It has been 2 years now, though I have no idea what happened to the rat house. Edit: first, I cannot believe this post got so popular. This is my first post on Reddit. I've had a lot of people asking where this was because they had similar experiences. At the risk of him seeing it and trying to sue me again, it was in Southampton. Apparently there are a lot of similar crappy landlords out there across the UK. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I would love to hear from you. Have you ever had to deal with a really bad landlord? If so, what happened? Feel free to let us know in the comments. Or, preferably, on r/Ripe Stories on Reddit, where you can share your whole story there. The next one is titled Sweet Revenge. I am a woman that works in IT and has done so for over 15 years at this point. I've done everything from tier 1 support to server management, and at one point I was the IT manager for a company for many years. Needless to say, I'm pretty well versed in computers and troubleshooting. I had moved states and just started out a new company, only been there a few weeks. A ticket came in for someone that basically said, "My computer is not working," so I walked over to their desk to see what was going on. Being new, I am very sweet, and I guess to some people it means I'm an idiot. The guy, I later learned was in his 50s and we will call him Jack, angrily asked who I was and where was former technician. I explained that he was no longer there and I was a new tech. He then asked for 2 other people who were both busy and finally just said, "I will just wait till they are done." Now, I understand there are some people who just prefer to work with specific others and that is fine, but this was not the case here. I said, "Okay, no problem, I will let them know and they can help when they are available." Being fairly new, I did not want to make a big issue of it, so I just let them both know he had asked for either of them specifically. Tom, tag number 1, just rolled his eyes and said, "Then he can wait." Bill, tag number 2, kind of chuckled and said, "That's fine, I'll go over there this afternoon." For the next few hours we were sharing stories of ridiculous tickets we have gotten in our careers and some of the jerks we've had to deal with. About 4 hours later, Bill decides to head over to Jack's desk to see what the issue was. He started complaining about his monitor flickering and going black every few minutes and how he has not been able to get any work done all day because we took so long to respond, and now he's going to be late submitting his project that was due today. Bill fiddles with a few things and after about 30 minutes calls us up and specifically asked for me to come over. I get there and he explains what he saw and everything he checked so far, but still couldn't get it working. No problem, let me have a look. Within 20 seconds I figured out the issue, and within 5 minutes the issue was resolved. Jack just gave me a solemn "thanks" afterwards. Bill made a big show of how I was such an awesome addition to their team, and he was so glad I got hired there. It felt really good. We walked away and secretly I knew that Bill knew how to fix it and it was all for show, but still. I have an amazing team. I've not had a problem with anyone else in the company other than the normal most people hate IT regardless. For anyone wondering, it was a driver update. And yeah, Ripe Stars, even if you don't really enjoy your work, it can definitely help to have a team or some nice colleagues simply that have your back at your job, which makes everything a little bit easier. However, of course, if both your job and the coworkers are terrible, then it is just a hell of a situation. The next one is titled Revenge on a Coworker. On the night shift we nap, there is nothing to really do from 1 AM to 6 AM. I would always nap in this one area. Everyone on their shift has their designated spot that they always go to. No one would use that chair because it was not reclining correctly. I looked up how to fix it and it was reclining properly again. The next time I work, I see my coworker's bag and blanket on the chair. I asked her when she was leaving the spot, since that is not her normal spot, not even thinking she was trying to sleep there. She goes, "I'm watching a movie." I found another spot that night, the following day the same thing. 3 days straight I'm like, this girl really took my spot. So before she got in, I removed the cord I fixed it with and put it back in the upright position and was already sitting in her old spot. I would come in slightly early every time she worked to claim her old spot. And the next one is titled Neighbor has threatened suing me and other new homeowners because we have devalued the neighborhood by buying homes at their current market value. Background info, I will try and make this as concise as possible. I am in Northern Virginia and my wife and I bought our first home in December 2014. According to our real estate agent, homes in Nova were worth a lot more in the spring of 2014 than they were in the fall/winter of 2014/15. According to him, there was a mini housing bubble for a couple of months last year that crashed and the Nova real estate market corrected itself. Today, homes are simply sitting longer and buyers are getting better deals than ever before. The townhouse we bought was originally sold 10 years ago, new construction, for $389,000. This June it was listed at $415,000, set on the market until late October when it went under contract for $385,000. The buyers lost their funding and the home appraised at less than the agreed upon purchase price. The home fell out of contract the first week of November and we made an offer of $370,000 that same day. We went to settlement on December 5th. The townhouse we bought is the largest of 4 model types, just shy of 3,000 square feet, an end unit, and is one of a small handful of end units that happen to have over 5,000 square feet of land. In total there are, I think, 85 townhomes in this portion of our master planned community. All of the homes in the community that are for sale are still sitting at the pre-bubble price/square feet of around $155 per square feet. We paid about $130 per square feet. The meat of the story is the following. It snowed here a few weeks ago and I had the opportunity to introduce myself to a few neighbors as we collectively complained about clearing snow from our driveways and sidewalks. I attempted small talk with douchebag, I will explain more about him in a minute, and he was generally unfriendly, but I chalked it up to being pissy about the snow. Why is he a D-bag, you ask? He drives a Range Rover, bumps very loud music through it at all hours of the night, typically comes home at 10 to 11 PM, drives very aggressively in the neighborhood, etc. It is one of those, You know it when you see it kind of things. Just take my word for it, he's a D-bag. So yesterday I'm getting a few things from my truck and see him and just make a friendly wave, say hello, make some small comment about the nice weather and smile. He looks at me and becomes visibly annoyed, hands clenched, defensive position, head turned cheery red. At this point I simply ask him, big mistake, if I have done something to upset him. Oh boy, he loses it. Long story short, he is overwhelmingly angry that I, among a few other new homeowners, have devalued the neighborhood because we bought homes that he thinks are now below market value, and this is going to start a trend of total devaluation of the neighborhood. In total, since mid-November, 4 homes have sold in and around the $360,000 to $370,000 range. All of them, including mine, went on the market in mid to late summer and were priced at spring-level prices initially. Douchebag calls out the addresses of the other 3 homes and yells at me how much he thinks they should have sold for. He then goes on to discussing that the house that he bought a few years ago is now underwater in value as "this seems to be the new trend around here." At this point I am done with being yelled at in the middle of the street, tell him to calm down and that I am heading inside. He then makes a series of comments where he more or less said that he had an attorney in the family who he was going to get to help from and filed suit against the 4 new homeowners as we have devalued his property now. He is in the smallest model, middle unit, with the smallest yard. So now my question/concern. I know someone can bring suit for anything, my concern is that he is actually going to follow through with this. I and my 6-month pregnant wife are worried sick that he's going to cost us a lot of precious time and money. A quick Google search does not reveal much of anything if there's any established precedents or successful cases of existing neighbors suing new homeowners because they got a deal on a home. In the event I get served, what kind of attorney should I look for? Would this be something that my homeowner's insurance would help me with? Lastly, we have a pretty restrictive and responsive HOA. Should I let them know about this possible issue? And a user in the comments said, he will get laughed out of court. You are under no obligation to overpay for your home to suit his sense of what the market value of his own house is. And another person commented, I am hijacking the top comment to say this. Yes, I agree with everyone. He almost certainly has no cause of action here, and any case he brought would be quickly dismissed. That being said, anyone can hire a lawyer and file a suit, and you will need to answer. That means you will have to spend money and time hiring an attorney to give this idiot the legal smackdown. If you ignore his lawsuit, he can win by default, just to make sure you don't totally ignore it. As others have said, you can then file a claim against him for bringing a frivolous lawsuit if you wish. Best of luck. Update to the neighbor threatened to sue because we purchased a bigger better house story. And the plot thickens with an out-of-control idiot teenage son and the HOA being pretty annoyed. I know this is long, but trust me, it is well worth the read. Where to start? The other weekend Nova got snow. Where I live, we got a lot of snow, over 10 inches. I only have a lowly shovel. A neighbor I have never met owns a brand new, huge and powerful snow blower, and being the nice guy he is, he helped quite a few of us out in moving the mountains of snow that fell. I thanked him and told him I owe him a 6-pack of something delicious. After some polite, "Nah man, you don't have to do that" comments, he told me that if I were to pick something up and he were not home, one could place a 6-pack in the ledge decorative crate that is on his front porch between the rocking chairs, and he would not object to finding a delicious treasure in there. He's a nice guy. That following Monday, 3 days later, I went to the grocery store and among my items was my neighbor's 6-pack. I did as he said, put the beer in the crate on his porch, noticed his security camera and waved to his security camera. On Wednesday evening I saw douchebag McG as I was pulling into my driveway. Hindsight, I am fairly certain he was likely waiting for me to get home. As soon as I get out of my truck, he starts shouting from across the street that I will be going to jail for providing alcohol to minors. He goes on to say that he discovered his kid wandering the neighborhood wasted on late Monday night. I immediately put 2 and 2 together and realized that his son stole the beer from my nice neighbor's front porch crate and drank it. I ignore him and walk right over to my nice neighbor's house and jokingly ask if he got my beers I left him. He says he didn't, and I tell him he may want to review the security camera footage for the last few days. He laughs and tells me that he already did that and directs me to his garage, where he shows me his kids' damaged snow toys, the sleds, discs and tubes. From what him and I can piece together, I placed the beer in his crate in the evening. Douchebag's teenage son came onto his porch minutes after, stole the beer, kicked and left a dent and crack in the siding of the house, grabbed a sled and took off. We head into my nice neighbor's house to watch/review the security camera footage, and he shows me what he just described. Fast forward a few hours later, an obviously intoxicated teenager comes back with a broken sled and takes a disc and tube from the side of the house and pees on the AC unit before leaving. About 20 minutes later, he is back with his empty bottles, smashes a few of them in the gutter and puts the broken snow toys back on the side of the house. All this happened when the nice neighbor and family were not home. At this point, I tell nice neighbor about douchebag's legal threats, and he decides that we should speak about him at the next night's Wednesday HOA meeting. I head home, ignoring douchebag's continuous yells from across the street. Wednesday night comes and nice neighbor and I get up and address our problems with douchebag to the HOA. Nice neighbor starts by talking about the theft as well as the damage to his kids' toys and siding. I get up and discuss the legal threats made. At the same time, the other 3 new neighbors get up and grumble that douchebag had threatened them with a suit as well. One woman, a tiny waif of a woman mind you, said that he cornered her against her car when she got home a few weeks ago. She went on to say that he seemed pretty drunk too. At this point, the HOA president, the attorney for the HOA, and the property management representative call for calm in the room. Other neighbors were getting mad and ask those of us who have been threatened by douchebag to stick around, including nice neighbor. According to my wife, while I was traveling for work this Monday, cops showed up at nice neighbor's house in the late afternoon, took a statement and a flash drive of the video. Nice neighbor came over to my house and told my wife that the HOA told him to go ahead and call the cops to report property destruction and trespassing. The cops assured him that they are not interested in speaking with me, that they are going after this little guy because he's a problem at his high school, and that they are not unfamiliar as to who he is. Again, according to my wife, the cops then head over to douchebag's house, and after some yelling, Douche Jr. comes outside and they arrest him. My wife said they pulled out of his pockets what looked like a small bag of weed and a glass pipe. I got home late last night and received an email this morning from the HOA president addressed to me, nice neighbor, and the other 3 new homeowners. In it stated that they were made aware by the cops that they had arrested the teenager and that the HOA attorney was looking into figuring out a way to stop the legal threats from douchebag. We were assured that there's no legal precedence for suing someone because they purchased something for less than you did, but nonetheless they are here to help if need be. So that is where we sit. And guys, I did a little bit of further research into this story, even though it wasn't really easy, if I gotta be honest with you. And from what I could gather, at one point the neighbor essentially just stopped with the legal threats because he noticed that essentially the entire neighborhood and the HOA is against him. So that is what caused him to stop in the end. And ripe stars, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you still cannot get enough of my content, then I would highly suggest to check out my endless binge watch playlist, which will soon show up in the left corner of the screen. In addition, I would really appreciate it if you could not only subscribe to the channel, but also turn on the bell notifications, which you can do by clicking on the little bell icon right next to the subscribe button. This will help my channel tremendously, and this will make sure that you don't miss any of my videos. Furthermore, if you want to see additional ripe content that I don't post on YouTube, then I would suggest to head on over to patreon.com/ripeyoutube for more than 50 exclusive videos that you will not see anywhere else. Thank you so much for your amazing daily support, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.